Hello everyone. In this video I will show you how to import a CSV file into a SAP system and copy the data into an internal table in a structured manner. I have already created a program for this and subdivided it as follows. First, we declare some variables and types. Then we create a parameter, a checkbox, to check if the file has a header or not. Then we call the file open dialog. Then we read the CSV file to an internal string tab. Then we check if a header exists. Then we check if we have some processable entries. And last, we create the internal table and we start the processing. For this example, I created a small CSV file. We see we have here a header line and 4 entries, and we have 5 columns. And to import this CSV file, we create a type with the same structure as the CSV file. So I write here begin of tie as CSV. And we create here our 5 columns. First, mandant, client, of type string, char ID, type string, con ID, type string, text type string, and text2 of type string. And this structure is one line of our CSV file. I write here end of tie as CSV. Next, we create the table type of this structure. So right here, tie IT CSV, type standard table of tie S CSV with default key. Next, we create a parameter, a checkbox. So I write here p header as checkbox default X. With this checkbox, we can select if the file has a header or not. Next, we call the file open dialog. And for this, we need some variables. And I write this here, lvrc type integer. Then IT files, type file table, lv action, type I. Then I write CL GUI frontend services. Then I call the method file open dialog. Then we have some exporting parameters. First, we create the file filter. CSV. Then start.csv \pipe start.csv \pipe and then CL GUI frontend services, file type, all. File, where is the method file? No, it's file type, all. Then the multi-selection, it's ABAP force, because we only want to upload one file, or we pick only one file. Then the changing parameters. Here we have the file table. It's IT files. Next, RC, it's LVRC. And last, user action, it's LV action. So we press pretty print, and next we check if the action was okay. So we write here if LV action equals CL GUI frontend services action okay. Then the next step is to check if a file is selected. So if lines of IT files equals 1, then we go on and we write, or we declare the string table. So I write here data IT CSV strings equals value string table. And next we do the file upload, the GUI upload. So I write here CL GUI frontend services. GUI upload. Then we have two exporting parameters. First, the file name. Oops. File name equals conf hashtag IT files index 1 file name. So it's the first record in the internal table IT files. Second, the file type. It's ASC. Next, the changing parameters. And here we have the data tab. And this is our string table. IT CSV strings. And in this example, I will display this internal string table so that we compare these data with the internal table. So I write here CL demo output, write data, IT CSV strings. Okay. So next we check if the file has a header. if the checkbox was selected. So, because if we have a header file, we start with the processing with line number 2, else line number 1. So I write here data LV start line is conditional operator I when p header is ABAP true, then 2 else 1. So that means if we have a header, we start with line number 2, else we start with line number 1. Next we check if we have some processable entries. So we check if the file is not empty, for example. If lines of IT CSV strings is greater than the variable LV start line -1, then we can go on with the processing, with the code. And now we create the internal table, the IT CSV. Is value of type IT CSV. This table type we have declared above. And next we start with the processing. We loop over the internal CSV string tab. IT CSV strings, assigning field symbol Z from our starting line, from LV start line. Then we declare a structure of a line of our internal table, call it LS-CSV line, is value of type SCSV. It's the structure we declared above at the beginning of the program. And now we do the processing. So we read the line of our string table, and we split this string by the semicolon by the separator. And we write this columns in another column, in another internal table called IT columns. So I write this into table data IT columns. Then we check if the number of columns equals with the columns of my CSV file. So I write here if lines IT columns equals 5, because 5 is the number of my columns from the CSV file. And then I assign these to my declared structure. So I write here mandant equals IT columns 1. The first line, the value of the first line from the table, from the internal table IT columns will be assigned to the structure and the mandant column. Next is the char ID, then the con ID, And for every value in this structure, I have an value in my EIT columns table. So let's copy this and paste it here. And we change the number. Here we have the text, and in line number 5 we have the text 2. Then and if. And then we append this structure to our internal CSV table. IT CSV. Then end loop. And next. So I repeat this little shortcut. We do a loop over the IT CSV string table. We split the data and write it into the IT columns, and we assign it to the structure. This structure we append to the internal table. And to show this, I write here CL demo output, write data IT CSV. So data LV HTML is CL demo output. Get. And I write here, or I use here the show HTML method. So I write CL ABAP browser, show HTML, exporting, title, I type here CSV data, and the HTML string, it's LV HTML, and the container, it's the default screen. It's CL GUI container default screen. Then we do a write here. We write space, so the container will be displayed. And if, another and if, and another and if. So let's pre-print the code and check the code. Okay, there are some errors. Multi-selection, it's a typo. And what's the next? It's IT columns. It's a typo again. It's here by the split command. So let's check it again. Looks good. And let's activate and run the code. Here we select here the checkbox because our CSV file has a header. Then run. Then I pick my file from my file system. This is a security question because we upload some files to the system. So let's zoom in here, and we see here the IT CSV string table from the file, and we see here the structured data in my internal table. So let's show this in the debugger. The interesting is here on line 60, where we loop over the string table. We upload our CSV file. And here we see this is our string table with these entries here. Next, we go on with the key F5, and we click on the field symbol, and we see the first line is assigned, the first data line. Then we split this string by the delimiter, by the semicolon in the IT columns table. So we go on and we see now these are the values from my IT columns table. These are my columns. And next we check if the number of columns the same as the number of columns in my file. And we assign the different lines to my structures, to my structure. And yes, this is, here we compare the number of columns. Next, we fill the structure. So we can open this structure here. And if I press the key F5, the next column is assigned, and so on. And at the end, we append this structure, the first entry, to the internal CSV table. We see here one entry is appended. And with the key F8, we execute the program. And we see here the result. Here the structured data from the CSV file. Yes, that was it already. Before you continue, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Of course, only if you like the video. Feel free to leave me a few comments here. I always enjoy reading them. I hope to see you again in one of my next videos. Thank you and see you soon.